Hi there, Daniel Sweet. This is 5-Minute Theology, where we're getting into the issue of the doctrine of God. And we think about the doctrine of God, it really, the question is what kind of being is God? You know, Scripture tells us time and again, answers this question if you have a full view of the Bible. Two issues come to mind when you ask that question. What kind of being is God? We're talking about God's nature and God's attributes. Today, we're going to just be looking at God's nature, and you need to eventually know the difference between these as we go through these teachings. So when we talk about God's nature, it really brings it into view when we start asking and start thinking about it in this way. What God is apart from His creation. Let's say we take away time, space, and matter. Then what do we have when we're talking about God? And when you start adding time, space, and matter, you begin to see His attributes. But if you take away time, space, and matter, all of God's creation, then what can we learn and glean about who God is? And when we think about God's nature, here are the 5 things that really jump out at us. God is spirit. I have a spirit. I have a non-physical part of me, both my spirit and my soul, but I also have a physical dimension, obviously. God is spirit. You cannot somehow put God in a test tube. We could not measure how much God weighs or how much there is of God. He is non-physical in that way, meaning God is spirit, but also God is a person. God has a personality. Now, we ought to understand personality because we have a personality. We operate and act and behave and have a worldview in a certain sort of way that impacts our personality. God is a person. He is not just some sort of immaterial fog somewhere, even though a fog is a material. He's not just some sort of aloof being out there that doesn't think and doesn't have emotion and those sort of things. No, God is a person. God is independent. I am not independent. I need air to live. I need water. I need food. I need shelter. I need a lot of things. God doesn't need anything. He's completely independent of fill in the blank. Whatever that is, fill in the blank, God is independent from it. God doesn't need anything. And so that's part of God's nature. God is eternal or infinite, or eternal and infinite, however you want to think about that. As far back as you could ever go, and even into eternity past. And I mean, as eternity just goes and goes and goes and never stops, and as it goes forward, in the same way, God is always there. God does not have a beginning or an end. You can't put bookends on who God is. He has always been. He always will be. That is almost impossible for the human mind to comprehend. Really, even the idea of numbers being infinite, but even more so, God is eternal, God is infinite. He has no beginning and no end. God is immutable. God never changes. Okay, He's not one thing today, another thing tomorrow. He doesn't behave one way now and another way then. He doesn't change his thoughts and His mind on sorts of issues. And I used to be into this and now I'm into that. Like that's not a part of God's nature. Okay, so God is spirit. He is immaterial. God is personal. He is a person. God is independent. He is in need of nothing. There's nothing that is contingent, or God isn't contingent upon any other thing. God is eternal and infinite. He has no beginning and no ends, and God is immutable. He never ever changes. This is God's nature. What God is like apart from His creation, time, space, and matter. You need to know the God of the Bible. When you're thinking about God, are you thinking about His nature correctly? May God richly bless you, and we will see you next time.